Hello and welcome to Southeast Iowa Union Sports Talk live on Washington Live's Facebook and YouTube, Mount Pleasant's Live Facebook and Fairfield Live's Facebook, as well as Spotify Washington Live video and audio. And we've got a packed show today. It's been a busy week or a busy couple of days for good and bad reasons here. So just in case we have any extra viewers that aren't always tuning in right at 2 o'clock or 2:05 or whenever we got this out to listen to a little high school sports coverage. We're going to start, as we always do, with some SEC basketball from this Friday. We have a super close conference race in the boys. And we have two commercial breaks on this show. After the first commercial break, we will tell you all what we know / remember from the incident in Fairfield between Fairfield and Iowa City High on Monday night. So if you're tuning in for that part, once we get past the first commercial, we'll talk about that. But we didn't want to take away from a wild weekend of basketball, especially on the boys' side. And I'm going to start out here because I was with the Washington and Mount Pleasant boys game, which as good of a rivalry as that is, it's at its peak right now, with both teams, along with Fairfield, going after this conference championship. They came into the game with one loss and both a half a game above Burlington for the conference championship. Mount Pleasant had beaten Washington in a close game earlier this year. And anyway, so it was at Washington, and the beginning of the game looked like it was going to be all Washington. It was about as good as the start as the Demons could ask for. Hunter. Oh, by the way, did I mention that Hunter Moeller is my co-host, and that we've got Nick Stephens on the ones and twos?
That's
I didn't.
Okay.
Sorry, Andy Kretzinger, Hunter Moeller, Nick Stephens. The final score was Mount Pleasant 58, Washington 51. And as I alluded to a second ago, Washington got out to a great start. And Mount Pleasant scored the first point. Washington scored the next 12. It was slowed down. They were getting a lot of points. Aiden Six had a great game, and he had a big start. In fact, all the guys down low were scoring for the Demons. They were up 15-6 in the first quarter. And much like when Mount Pleasant and Fairfield played this last Friday, where Fairfield had a big lead on Mount Pleasant, it seemed like in the second quarter it was kind of it turned from what looked almost like a runaway game for Washington to more competitive, and then all of a sudden it's getting a little quicker, and Mount Pleasant's finding their footing, and it was 27-20 Washington at halftime. And this is something that head coach Colin Stark said after the game, is that he felt like they should be up 15 or 16 points, which I did too. They had a lot of bunnies, a lot of missed shots on the Washington end, because they did get a lot of good shots in the second quarter. So even though the flow kind of was a Washington flow, they were only up 7. In fact, I saw the Mount Pleasant team walking off the court, and a couple of them looked up the scoreboard, and I heard one of them say, "We're only down 7 points, guys." So they were just as shocked. And if there's a team I want in the second half, it's probably the Mount Pleasant boys. And they came out once again and had a comeback victory. Peyton Higgins, as usual, just kind of takes over as the game goes on. He's like the Energizer Bunny. He keeps going and going. He hit, I think 6 3-pointers in this game, and he scored 30 points. Washington was back up 39-38 after the third quarter. And then Mount Pleasant in the fourth was able to come back. There was a little back and forth. Owen Van Sickle hit a big 3 to put Mount Pleasant up 3. And that was about midway through the quarter, and from then on, Mount Pleasant was able to pull it out. Washington just went cold, which they hadn't been. Well, they had been, but they definitely weren't in the first quarter. In the first quarter, they came out just firing away. They got a team that has a lot of big guys, but they can all shoot around a little bit. So 58-51, Higgins ended up with 30, Owen Van Sickle with 13, Aiden Six with 18 for Washington, and AJ Six with 9. Ethan Patterson was held to 8 points. On the Washington side, and on the Mount Pleasant side, Aiden Ashton was held to 2, which are 2 guys that were the 2 leading scorers the last time they played. So it was a little bit of a wild game and another fun little addition of that rivalry, Hunter.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I can't think I say it every week. Obviously, when those two teams meet up, and they're 2 great teams, fighting for, it adds a little more fire to it when you're fighting for that conference title there. And obviously, we saw it again, last weekend, or last Friday night. But
Yeah, and then just one more thing on Mount Pleasant and Washington boys real quick because we got a packed show. They both won the very next night. Mount Pleasant played Mid-Prairie in a game that I thought was two teams that were a carbon copy of each other. In fact, Darren Lambert, the head coach of Mid-Prairie, said when he was preparing for Mount Pleasant, he basically said, this is just us. This is just our team because Mid-Prairie, like Mount Pleasant, subs a lot of guys. They have a lot of taller guys inside, and it was another big Peyton Higgins game. So that, by the way, I said the very next night. That's not true because they didn't play Saturday. They played on Monday night. Yep. And he had 28. Alex Bean with 18. Cameron Pickard with 12 for the Golden Hawks, and that was a 66-59 Mount Pleasant victory. So, the Golden Hawks also took that one on the girls' side, 61-51. Behind a nice balanced effort, Nora Pennington and Landry Jones. That's a quarterback for Oklahoma a few years ago. I always do that. Landry Pasha. They have Amara Jones, so I say Landry Jones all the time when I think about Mid-Prairie girls. They both had 15. Andrea Loprato had 29 for the Mount Pleasant girls. But real quick back to the Mount Pleasant Washington games because there was a girls game at Mount Pleasant, and that was a lot like the first team the two teams played. Mount Pleasant by 9 here, 44-35. Andrea Loprato had 20, Tristan Schull 16 for Mount Pleasant. Leighton Messinger had 11 points and 12 rebounds for the freshman for Washington. So the Demons are right there behind Mount Pleasant. Unfortunately for the Panthers in this one, Andy Scott went down with an injury, which really hurts them. Yeah. They play 6, 7, 8 people, and that's one of by far their best athletes. You got to see a couple of kids step up against Mid-Prairie the next day, but that's a tough one. She's going to be out.
And she's improved a lot since last year too. I think you've seen her game. She's been huge for them.
She has both Andy and Alex Scott are sisters. Alex is a freshman, and they add the athleticism when those two are on the court because they fly, all over the court. And sometimes they get in a little foul trouble, but they fly all over the court. So it's it's tough for Mount Pleasant to only have one of them because they're playing at Keokuk with a chance to get up tied for first place for the conference championship. So. On the boys' side, Mount Pleasant is now alone in first, and a big reason for that is because our Fairfield boys basketball team
it's Burlington.
Beat Burlington, and you were at the girls' game, so you can talk about whichever one you want first.
Well, we'll start with the with the boys' game just because of the playoff implications or conference implications in this one. But the first time these two teams met, it was a 9-point win for Burlington. Fairfield was without J.J. Lane in that one due to sickness, and he was back in this one, and he was big for him. Ended up being a 68-62 Fairfield win. Really great game for three. Really great game for Fairfield for 3 quarters there. Burlington kind of came back into it in the fourth, but didn't have enough time on the clock. But Fairfield led 13-11 after one, and then 33-22 at the half. And then after a 16-14 third quarter, it was 49-36 Fairfield. Heading into the fourth, Burlington did kind of find a spark in that fourth quarter, ended up scoring 26 to Fairfield's 19, but didn't have enough time on the clock, as I mentioned, and Fairfield gets a huge win, and I believe I think it's J.J. Martin for Burlington. I believe I heard that he scored all 16 of his points in the fourth quarter, so he was huge for them trying to make a comeback in that. But I mentioned J.J. Lane not being there for Fairfield the first time around. He scores 22 in this one. Tate Allen with 18, huge night for him. Max Wheaton with 16 and 14 boards. I also mentioned Tate Allen at 8 assists. I mean, when those three are on, it seems like Fairfield's putting W's on the board. So, huge win for them to stay in the conference, for stay up at the top of the conference, but obviously they need some help. Help down the line with Mount Pleasant and even Burlington still right there, and Washington.
I will say that we have said over and over again that Fairfield was going to beat one of those other teams eventually, and they're playing really good right now. Actually, they've won 4 out of the last 5 or so, with the only loss being at Mount Pleasant. So in January, they're one of the hottest teams, and it's getting to that time, and you were at a wild girls game. You've had a couple of those real close games this year, and Fairfield and Burlington. Showdown in Fairfield. Yeah, the boys and girls flip-flopped the results from last time. Obviously, the first time Burlington and Fairfield met, it was a 4-point win for the Trojans in that one. And then this time around, it was a 68-62 win for Burlington in overtime. Needed an extra period for this one. It was real tight-knit, kind of what we expected from the first game. Burlington and Fairfield were tied 13-13 after one. Fairfield looked outstanding in that second quarter. Led 33-27 at the half.
going in the third, Fairfield kind of kept up that momentum. Edged Burlington 11-8 for a 53 or a 60-53 lead heading into the fourth. And then down the stretch, Fairfield had a 5-point lead with just around a minute to go. Some turnovers on the Burlington press kind of led to some easy buckets, and they ended up tying and needing overtime. And Burlington outscored Fairfield 11-5 in that fifth quarter there, and ended up taking the win and taking a big conference win. So that's Burlington's fourth win, and Fairfield's still sitting at 2 wins.
Yep, and then conference-wise, they will, unless one of them upsets a team above them, they will tie for fifth place with 1 win apiece there. So, and then conference-wise, as I said, Keokuk currently in first because they beat Fort Madison. Mount Pleasant and Fairfield tied. Mount Pleasant and Fort Madison, tied in second. And then Washington's all locked into that fourth place spot no matter what. So
it's a real tough loss for Fairfield looking at that one, because that's when that's one of the better games that they could pick up a win. And I'll also mention this because I forgot to mention Savannah Hollander had 20 points, real nice night for the junior in that one. Ashlyn Lisk with 15 and Maddie Jones with 9 to lead the Trojans in that one.
And they were playing Burlington's freshman who just puts up all sorts of points.
I believe she had 27 points.
27 points.
And fouled out with about 4 minutes to go in the fourth quarter.
Yeah. So she could have put up, she's going to, I can't even imagine how many points she's going to be putting up. There are a lot of good freshmen on the girls' side.
Yeah, there is.
I just mentioned Alex Scott from Mount Pleasant. Washington has a ton of freshman talent. And then Keokuk has a really good freshman too. So there's good hands of the SEC girls basketball. But we're going to stick with a little bit of big school basketball in a way. We're going to go to commercial for 2 minutes, and when we come back, we will talk about the incident with Fairfield and Iowa City High as best as we can and with as much knowledge as we have. So we will be back in 2 minutes.
Federation Bank is a locally owned bank providing award-winning customer service. We believe that we are more than just a federation of banks, but a federation of communities, serving Brighton, Richland, Wellman, and Washington, Iowa. Federation Bank's highly skilled staff is here to make sure you are able to accomplish your personal and professional goals, whatever they may be. Federation Bank, your family bank.
Hospice isn't a place, it's a type of care that focuses on living. Servicing a 7-county area, the Hospice of Washington County staff of nurses, social work, hospice aides, spiritual and grief support, volunteers, music and massage therapists are able to provide free end-of-life care where the patient lives. We write wills, give consent for organ donation, but rarely is there a plan for what we would want the final phase of our lives. At Hospice of Washington County, we encourage our patients to be in charge of their healthcare decisions while maintaining quality of life.
At the Capper Auto Group, we put our customers' needs first and understand that everyone is as different as the vehicle they select. We offer new Ford, Chevrolet, Buick, GMC, Jeep, Chrysler, Dodge, and Ram vehicles in a friendly environment that puts you in the driver's seat. When it comes to service, we maintain factory-trained technicians and competitive pricing. The Capper Auto Group still believes that service after the sale provides the best customer experience. Come see the Capper experience for yourself.
Tammy takes the time and has the personal interest in each one of us. I don't worry about what's going to happen because I know my policy is taken care of.
She pulls what I need and puts it together, which is the program I get from her.
Every year she calls around September or so and says, there's changes again, and I'm going to do the best thing for you. It's been perfect. She does a great job.
We are back, Southeast Iowa Union Sports Talk Live. Just a reminder, Wednesdays at 2 o'clock we're here. Washington Live's YouTube and Facebook. Facebook Live for Mount Pleasant and Fairfield Live, and also Spotify Washington Live video and audio. So if you want to listen to us in the car, I someone said the other day they were listening to us in the morning on the way to work. So you just don't watch it when you're on them. But so we're going to do a more serious subject here, as a lot of people know now because there's been a lot of media stuff on social media about this incident that happened on Monday night in Fairfield. Fairfield boys were hosting Iowa City High in a non-conference game, which was a good challenge for both teams, and at that, that was kind of what we expected. But there was some extra stuff with some ejections and then some allegations afterwards. And so, Hunter, you were our boots on the ground guy, and so I'm going to ask you first, What do you remember from what happened and from your view? And I know you were on the other side of the court for a lot of this main stuff, but what did you see go down?
Well, first off, it was just a really good game, between two tough teams wanting to win, obviously. To start, and then it got a little chippy. In the first half, as I mentioned in my story, is Tate Allen and Evan Lampy of Iowa City High kind of dove for a loose ball, and then you got a little chippy there, but just basketball, whatever. But as the game progressed, like tensions were pretty high, and then Iowa City High's head coach ended up getting teed up, and it was right after I believe he was upset that a foul wasn't called, or something along those lines. That was my originally take on the incident, and then it was like, okay, we're shooting technical free throws here, and then next thing you know, he gets a second tech, so he gets ejected, and we're shooting more free throws, and before the second technical free throws are shot, a fan gets ejected, and then the game just kind of continues as normal after that. I mean, obviously the chanting from both sides is a little more I guess, of course, I don't want to say hostile, but just the energy and
tension's high.
Tension's high. You can feel it, right? And then game's going on with exactly 2 minutes left in the game. Fairfield's up 14. Evan Lampy gets a foul on Tate Allen. He fouls out, and then all of a sudden he just dead sprint runs at Allen, knocks him over, and throws a punch. And next thing you know, kind of bench is clear. They get cleared out. Obviously, Lampy is ejected, and then they take a 5-minute break. Just to kind of, I think they decided that to talk it over, let the tension kind of die down a little bit. And then next thing you know, they called the game. So, from the extent of my point of view, obviously I was on the other side of the court, and obviously, after the story was written, we got some emails from Iowa City fans, talking about this, alleged racially charged comment at Iowa City High's head coach, and obviously I was on the other side of the court, so I had no clue this was even a factor in this until the emails were sent. So now, obviously, it's been flying around on Twitter, and some other news organizations picked it up. So now it's kind of grown into this this allegation, and obviously we're still doing our research and waiting to see what's going to happen from the higher ups. For
sure. Well, yeah, and so I think you were out getting lunch after your story went online at 11, 12, something like that, and we got forwarded a couple of emails at about 1, and so I was one of the first to read the emails, and they're from Iowa City High parents. They said in the email they're parents or fans or whatever, and both were pretty similar, and that they said that, you forgot to mention that there was something racially charged said from one of the officials, a referee to the coach, which I would assume that would have probably been, if that happened, in the part where he was ejected. And that basically the emails are saying, well, now Iowa City High is being painted in a bad light because you talked about the incident, the scuffle, which you asked me on the way home that night. Should I mention the fact that there was a punch thrown or a scuffle? And I said, yeah, even though it's uncomfortable, you have to, because otherwise people know that it happened. Right. It was already swirling around, that happened. And in fact, we're getting word. Our news reporter Andy Hallman is talking to a couple different people. One, he's going to try and ask Fairfield about the stream, because Fairfield streams their games, and I had went home to stream it, and it got taken down or something, or it just wasn't work. Whatever happened, it wasn't available. But there was video of the incident, which was shared of all people. The student account Barstool Iowa City Liberty got a hold of it, which it was probably texted from one kid to another. But so it was out there. I said, you have to mention it, because otherwise when you read the story, like if you know what happened, you're reading the newspaper and it's like, Fairfield played a pretty good game, 3 out of 4, and
but this actually
Max
happened.
Wheaton had so many points. Then it's like, well, you omitted a huge thing. And of course you had no idea about the allegations of a racially charged comment, apparently from an official to the Iowa City High coach. Mm-hmm. Now, that was from parents at first. Right. And I, emailed and I said, hey guys, we'll investigate further, but coming from parents, a real allegation would have to come from the school. Right. Well, I was talking to a couple of the Gazette writers, because they were working on their own, and they had a statement from Iowa City High, and you can read it online in full. But the statement from the school alleged that not only was there an official that said a racially charged comment to the head coach of Iowa City High, who is of color, but that it was so bad that there was a police escort out of Fairfield High School to get them out, and people have argued online, and I kind of agree. The statement from Iowa City High makes it almost seem like it was a hostile environment to get out of Fairfield, so they needed the police to come in and take them out. And Fairfield has released a statement today, which we have now put out.
It's on Twitter.
It's on Twitter, and I will read a bit of it because it just came out. Because the statement, it mentioned that there was a physical act of aggression, I think.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really talk about the scrum a little bit. But Fairfield has sent out, and you can read it all. I'll read a bit of it here. Maybe I'll just read the whole thing. But it says, in light of some of the publicity and inaccurate reports about the gym environment and police involvement at the Fairfield Iowa City High game on January 23rd, FCSD, Fairfield Community School District, is compelled to provide clarification that demonstrates our community values and the happenings that led to the end of the game. And so it goes on to say that Fairfield supports a safe environment. It mentions that there was an altercation, which they had, I think, put something out before, and it said FCSD is aware that Iowa City High administration had contacted the Iowa High School Athletic Association regarding allegations surrounding the communication between the game officials and the City High basketball coaches. FCSD is willing to provide any information that might be able to assist in the investigation. They said after the altercation involving players, Fairfield administrators decided the team should take a 5-minute break. So this is kind of a reiteration of the altercation is what led to the break.
Right, exactly.
Which I think people got confused into thinking that it was after the ejections. Which one of the ejections happened? Was it early fourth quarter or third quarter?
Early third.
So it was a few minutes in between. I'm sure the tensions were still high, and if there was something said, I'm sure that could have, raised them enough for something crazy to happen. But it does say Fairfield police were called at the end of the game to support the safety of all individuals. The police did not enter the building during the event. Fairfield police stayed at the high school and were present when the City High team was boarding the bus, and the Iowa State Patrol trooper offered to follow the bus out of town and did so without incident, which is a little different than there's a difference between the police coming and, when they get on the bus and follow them out of town, than escorting them out of the building and out of town, basically.
Yeah.
And so I think people have been concerned on the Fairfield side that Fairfield is getting painted in kind of a bad light, which the officials at the game aren't Fairfield locals. It's not like in volleyball, the line judges are just teachers from the school that they get to. It's almost a volunteer thing. There was an association of officials that was put on the game, and they have come out with a statement that said that they vehemently deny any of this, and that they were insulted, that their
character was
put into question. But an important thing to remember, and I guess us being sports writers, we know this, but even in non-conference games, the officials aren't if you're in Fairfield, the officials don't live in Fairfield.
Right.
If you're in Mount Pleasant, the officials don't live in Mount Pleasant. There might, because they're a cruise, but that kind of got a little, and so I think a lot of people thought, one, that the officials were just Fairfield people, and two, that the ejections led, all this stuff was happening at the same time, and so that was, so it's kind of good to clear that out, that's a little wrong. Is there anything that I haven't mentioned about this? Because there is it's an ever-growing thing, and we've got a reporter in contact with the Fairfield Police to ask about that kind of stuff, and also the video team at Fairfield to see, about the stream and stuff. Not that matters, because it makes sense why you would take down the stream if there was an altercation.
I mean, nothing else. I think the important thing is to just see what gets, I guess, what comes to light. What comes to light, and what the actual, I guess, what comes out. What does the investigation lead to? I guess is kind of the most important thing at this point, because obviously, right now it's just everybody's word against everybody else's word. So it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, it is. Well,
I
a lot of people kind of put themselves out there one way or another. Right. There aren't a lot of people that were in the area that know what happened. In fact, you were there, but you were on the other side. You couldn't hear. So I would say advice in general, when something like this happens, don't stick your neck out and say if you weren't there or that it did or didn't happen, because what happens if you say, one, what if you say it definitely did happen? He said something, racist, and then afterwards Iowa City High says, you know what, we got a little heated, we made something up.
Yeah.
Then you look dumb. What if you say, no, that ref didn't say anything wrong? He definitely didn't do anything, and then the official comes out and says, hey, I apologize, I lost my temper and I said, a horrible thing. Then guess who the bad guy in the situation is? It's not only the person at fault originally, but it's the people that kind of stuck their neck out for one side or the other. So you have to wait, and we don't know. There's three things that could happen. It could be the official. It could be true, and the official comes out and either never says anything or says that he said it. It could be false, and the coaches either never say that it didn't happen, or say that it did, or the official could have said something that was either misunderstood, or that he would not have found racially charged, and the coach would have. In which case, on both camps, they think they're right. There's no lying or anything like that. Right. So there are a lot of possibilities. Yeah. But we, you were a little bit attacked because Hunter didn't know about the allegations, and when they were talking about the police escort, I did think like, how'd Hunter not see the police walk in and take the Iowa City people? So I was a little confused. But your story was out. You couldn't. Yeah. It's not like every game we're going and asking coaches what were your conversations with the officials. So you got a little bit of heat, but not really. Yeah. But I mean, there have been a lot of stories out from everywhere, and but obviously,
I get like the point of not, obviously, if I would have known there was a racially charged comment, if that was even in the question, like that would have been in the story. But I just, I wasn't over on that side, right? It was loud in there. I couldn't. Yeah. I probably can't even hear. I wouldn't be able to hear if I'm on the other side of the court what the ref was saying to the the coach. Exactly,
and we so in the paper today and online yesterday is the story Fairfield. Chaos ensues, Fairfield prevails, which you wrote and I looked at, which I don't always look at, as the sports editor, I don't always look at, through all your stuff to make sure you're not, and we sent out. So we stand by that. And then we'll have a story from the Gazette that Jeff Johnson wrote. It's a very more detailed story with quotes about the alleged racially charged comment. And then I believe on Friday, we'll probably have something that is a wrap up of, because there's still stuff to come out. Right. It's still early in this thing, so these things take time, and these couldn't be solved, months from now.
Because I mean, obviously, I believe the Iowa Athletic Association, High School Athletic Association is or has been contacted, but they haven't said really anything yet about the whole situation yet either.
Yeah, I think originally Chris Kuelier, I think is how you pronounce his name. He's a good guy. At first, people contacted him right away, and I think he was like, I don't know what happened. I'm not going to make a statement right now. But the Officials Association that provided those officials did deny it. And City High still says it happened. And Fairfield is, in a way, kind of a middleman a little bit because, Tate got hit, and whether that had to do with the official stuff, and I know there's probably jawing back and forth. Right. Which he's okay. You said he got up right away, right? Yeah. And then, Fairfield's kind of in the middle of the stuff, and there was some between mudslinging one way or another that got on Fairfield somehow. So I think they were pretty upset, and so they felt like they had to send that statement out. So and I emailed Fairfield's superintendent, head coach, and athletic director yesterday to clear all this up, and I said in the email, just so you know, we're getting stuff from City High, so it's probably smart to say something, because I'm sure your original thing is we don't want to get involved, too involved in this when it's between officials and Iowa City High. So. Yeah. Got anything else on that?
Oh, I think that was pretty well said.
Hopefully we didn't miss anything and get any replies in the comments. We'll have more on this, guys. So we just want to talk about it a little bit because if not, it felt like we were ignoring it.
Right, exactly.
Yes. But what we won't ignore is our sponsors because we got 2 more minutes of commercials, and then we're going to talk a little bit about some small school basketball, wrestling, and bowling. We're going to speed through it a little bit when we get back. So 2 minutes, commercials now.
Protection is important, especially when you're talking about your dreams, which is why we're going to keep you covered with plans that can save you up to 23% when you bundle your home and auto. That's protection.
Family owned and operated by Andy and Sarah Ross, Ross Auto has been your vehicle repair and maintenance headquarters since 1935. We specialize in all makes of cars and light-duty trucks. With our variety of available services, let us help you keep rolling and your vehicle operating efficiently. Services include general auto repair, alignments, brakes, fuel injection, and more. Schedule your appointment today at 319-653-5656. That's 319-653-5656.
Welcome back to Southeast Iowa Union Sports Talk Live on Washington Live, presented by the Southeast Iowa Union, by the way, a newspaper which everyone could read and subscribe to and stuff like that. That keeps us going. Andy Krutzinger, Hunter Moeller, Nick Steffens on the ones and twos and all the stuff that we don't know how to do, and that he's also on the camera a lot. So stay tuned to Washington Live and Mount Pleasant Live for news and Fairfield Live for news updates and stuff like that. He kind of heads that up. So we're going to do a little roundups. We were both at small school games last night, which normally we would have talked about ad nauseum by now. But we're going to do a little quick here. We're starting with the boys roundup. And I can start with, because I was at a small school game, Waco last night played Highland. For people who have been following the high school sports season, we know on the girls' side, we'll talk about it. That's a nice little battle. On the boys' side, Waco's undefeated, and Highland is about as young and as new as our teams. So I apologize to Bill, the coach at Highland last night. Hey, I'm sorry that we're seeing you guys play on the road against the number 3 team in the state, which Waco is. But it is what it is. There's 2 teams of ours going against each other. You know, Waco won that 59-11. Hunter Hughes had 14. For Waco, Colton Lichty had 12. Actually, they might have both had 12. I might have had 14 on the unofficial thing. I think the official had Hughes and Lichty had 12. Simeon Reichenbach had a great dunk. He had a missed dunk 4 seconds of the game, and the made dunk 35 seconds of the game, which you never see that.
That's wild.
They had a couple dunks. Mason Miller also threw down one. Not quite as vigorously as Reichenbach's, but I got a picture of the dunk in the paper tomorrow. So Highland, Ethan Paisley hit a knockdown of 3 in the first half. He ended up being their leading scorer 3. They had 5 scorers. Again, they're young, and their coach said afterwards, playing Waco, we like to play Waco not because we're going to score 11 points, but because we can kind of see what we want to be soon. So Highland's in the rebuilding process, and Waco is undefeated, probably going to be a 1 seed in the sub-state. So that was one of our boys' games. And tell us about the rest.
Yeah, I was on the, I was in Pekin last night, watch the Pekin Panthers take on Hillcrest Academy. On the boys' side, obviously, really tightly contested matchup all the way through up until the fourth quarter. Hillcrest's Grant Bender hit 4 straight free throws to put the Ravens up 46-40, and that was the largest lead at any point in that game by either team. Up until that point, the largest lead was 5 at any point in the game. It was kind of crazy down to the wire with 57 seconds left. Pekin answered back with a pair of threes. They ended up leading 49-48. And then with 34 seconds left, Pekin got to the line, split at the line. They led 50-48. And then Seth Hours of Hillcrest got to the line. They fouled. He got 2 shots at the line because they were over the limit there. Mm-hmm. And then he split, but somehow Bender got the rebound, and they called a timeout. They had a chance to win it, but he got called for traveling, and then Pekin went down to the other end with 1.8 on the clock, hit a pair of free throws to kind of seal in. Bender's heave at the buzzer was too much, and Pekin walks away with a huge win, 52-49. And obviously that's huge for the Panthers because obviously Hillcrest last year was the number 3 team right up there with Winfield and Waco, and Pekin's kind of coming into their own here.
We were vindicated double because we said on the show multiple times that Fairfield was going to knock off one of those teams, top teams in the SEC, and that we said multiple times that Pekin was going to, that they were kind of our dark horse a little bit, and that's a big win over Hillcrest.
Yeah. And then for the rest of the boys' games on the night, we'll get to the girls' game when you talk about the girls' roundup. But New London with a huge win. They downed Mediapolis 61-49. They won. The Tigers won three out of the four quarters on the night, taking the first 14-7, second 16-8, and the third 14-11. The Bulldogs came back in the fourth 23-17, but New London held too much of a lead at that point. Huge night for Blaze Porter. I believe Cade Benjamin didn't play in this one, but Blaze Porter goes for 35, 12, and 4. Huge night for him. Mid-Prairie 62-54 over Durant. The Golden Hawks led 21-15 after one and 31-25 after two. Durant was able to make it a 4-point game, 44-41 after a 16-13 third. But the Golden Hawks outscored the Wildcats 18-13 in the fourth to seal that one. Cameron Pickard, I know you were talking about him when you went to Mount Pleasant. He impressed you. He led with 20 points in the win. Alex Bean with 19 in the night. Keota 63-52 over Iowa Valley. Keota trailed at the half against the Tigers, but the Eagles dominated the second half on their way to the victory on the night. Keota was outscored 32-29 in the first half. But the Eagles took the third 14-10 and the fourth 20-10 on a huge win. Really nice win for Keota. They're kind of obviously they lost kind of big to Waco early in the season, but they've been playing some good ball though. That
was the one blemish was that they lost. It was more of a blowout. And when you play Waco for the first time, they're pressing all the time. So Keota is always one of the more dangerous teams, and
I believe they only have 3 losses too.
They're always the most fun team in the tournament because they don't play the other Super Conference teams. Also, they're kind of the mystery. So they're kind of fun.
Wapello 53-41 over Columbus. The Wildcats were outscored 21-6 after one, and then Columbus bounced back in the second with 13-5 quarter to make it 26-19 at the half. Wapello kind of took control in the second half, 13-5 in the third, and 17-14. Columbus won the fourth 17-14, but just came up a little short there. And then we have Danville 47-19 over Van Buren County. Really, it was a close game through the first. Danville led 8-6 after one, and then won the second 11-10. So it was just a 19-16 lead for the Bears after the first half. But in the second, it was all Bears. They scored 28 while giving up just 3 points to the Warriors in the second half. So a real tough time for Van Buren there and scoring on the scoring end there. 28 points ain't that bad, but just seems like they couldn't get the ball in the bucket there in the second half. So tough loss for Van Buren there.
For sure.
And that's it for all the boys' action on the night, small school boys.
There you go. Well, we had some girls' action, and you were at Pekin and Hillcrest, so you can start there.
Yep.
What happened there?
Obviously been a struggle for Hillcrest Academy this year. I'm obviously still searching for their first win. Pekin, they had 2 wins coming into this one. They ended up taking this one 56-21. That's their third win of the season. Really, I was kind of impressed with how Hillcrest was playing in that first half there. It was a pretty tight-knit game through the first half. Pekin led 12-5 after the first quarter, and then it was even closer in the second, 7-5 into Pekin's favor, and that was a 19-10 lead after the half. But then in the second half, it was pretty much all Panthers in that one. They really kind of picked it up on the offensive end. In the third quarter, Hillcrest did do better on the scoring end, but kind of ended on a bad note in the scoring as scoring woes go in the fourth. So in the third, Pekin outscored Hillcrest 20-9. That gave them a 39-19 lead going into the fourth, and then Pekin ended on a 17-2 quarter for that 56-21 win. So, like I mentioned, third win of the season for Pekin. Hillcrest still searching for their first win.
Yeah, for sure. And they're young too. And I was at Waco and Highland, as I mentioned, because I was at the boys' game. It was guys. It's a girl-boy doubleheader. Pay attention to the Super Conference much. It was a game that featured some of our more statistically crazy players,
Right.
Ella Kissel scores a bunch of points a game. Sarah Burton's basically a walking double-double for Highland. And then Highland's Caitlin Waters is one of the best passers around. She's up there in the assist totals for sure. But it was kind of a lower scoring, a little more clunky type game. And the difference by far in a 60-25 Waco win was that Waco got about every rebound. Offensively, especially. I thought that it was a great game for Emma Wagler and Grace Coble down low, getting a lot of rebounds. Wagler had a couple of threes. She really impressed me just with her versatility. And then Ella gets a lot of rebounds. She's a really tall guard. And Kissel with 17, Wagler with 14, Coble with 12, and Katie Lichty had 10-4 in double digits. And those girls were in double digits early in the fourth, or maybe late in the third. So it was a very balanced attack. Highland Sarah Burton had 9. Jessica Krause had 7, all in the second half. She really came alive there. So Highland couldn't quite take down one of the top teams. We've seen the separation between the top two in the North in both boys and girls basketball, and so a win for old Waco, it was it's tough to try and out-rebound a team that has that kind of height.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's see. We've got more girls basketball. I almost forgot the actual roundup. Mid Prairie has played 7 games in 2023. Girls basketball, Hunter, how many think they've lost?
None.
0. 7-game winning streak. They're undefeated for the year. 63-22 over Durant last night. Lander Page 12 points and 11 rebounds. Maya Noneman with 12 points co-led the team. Iowa Valley 51-22 over Keota. Albia 60-31 over Cardinal. Wapello 43-38 over Columbus. This is a close game. I think BC Moore had this a lot more than 5 points. Who has returned to the box scores. We haven't seen Columbus girls since she's been back, but Lily Coyle, who was hurt, one of their best athletes, sophomore, she went 4, and she's still coming off the bench. Maybe hasn't found her shot yet. The percentages haven't been there, but 11 points, 11 rebounds, and 4 steals.
Man.
So watch out for Columbus. They're going to be one of those teams in the regional that's underseeded because they were injured coming into that. And Mediapolis 79-27 winners over New London. Mediapolis not a very fun team to play now.
No, they're not.
Mediapolis plays Burlington Notre Dame, by the way, tomorrow or Friday, and the winner of that will be the last team standing with 1 loss in the South, which would mean they'd play Winfield Mount Union, who did not play last night in the championship, the Super Conference championship game. So,
which is going to be very interesting.
Yeah, WMU fans, you want to pay attention to Mediapolis Notre Dame girls.
Especially because the first time around, Mediapolis
got them right.
Beat Notre Dame, I believe.
Yeah, and Winfield has beat Mediapolis
by, I believe it was like 17.
And Notre Dame, in my opinion, is probably going to be the other top seed in Winfield's bracket. They haven't played yet, and they've played. Don't want to remind Winfield fans about that. They've played the last few years in the tournament, and it hasn't quite went Winfield's way yet. So, that's all that we got for basketball. We're going to run through. You had the wrestling roundup the other day.
Yep, weekend wrestling. I'll just run through it real quick. The Washington Demons were at the John J. Harris Invitational over the weekend. As a team, the Demons finished 12th. Aaron Boone and Jude Carter were both second-place finishers at 120 and 138. Fairfield and Mount Pleasant both took part in the Williamsburg Raider Invitational. The Trojans finished 5th in the tournament, and Mount Pleasant took 6th. Kel McCabe at 113 and Dre Smithberg at 220 for the Trojans were both first-place finishers. Dane Burkhart was a second-place finisher, as well was Zach Westerkamp. For Mount Pleasant, Franklin Toussaint took 3rd at 285. Charlie Bowenkamp finished 4th at 126, and Bowen Davis finished 5th at 145. Columbus Winfield Mount Union were at Bean City Duels in Iowa City on Saturday. As a team, the Wildcats took 6th. Waco, New London, Van Buren County, and Highland all competed in the Wise Muscatine Invitational over the weekend. Waco finished 7th, New London took 9th, Van Buren 10th, Highland 11th. For Waco, Jonathan Heather took 1st at 285. Louding Housing Gate was 3rd at 160. John McLaughlin and Drew Deers took 4th at 120 and 220. New London's highest finisher on the day was Gage Burden at 120, Dom Lopez at 160, and then Trent Wilkerson at 225. The trio were both first-place finishers. Carlos Valenzuela of Highland took 1st at 132. Remington Fields placed 2nd at 145. For Van Buren County, Colt Boyles led the Warriors on the day with a 3rd-place finish at 106. And TJ Girock, Corbin Camp, Tyler Stoltz, Kale Mellinger, Darren Kaufman, and Naomi Westerkamp all took 5th. There were a lot of 5th-place finishers there. Mid Prairie and Sigourney Coda were in the North Tama Red Hawk Invitational over the weekend. Rihanna Utterback finished 1st at 106, and DJ Hams finished 1st at 145. Reed Mullinex at 152, Ashton Schwab at 160, Brady Clark at 126, and Dan McLaughlin 132. And Jack Clearhan all took 2nd, and Clearhan was at 170. And looks like that is it.
That is it. Just some. We have got some more bowling that will be in. Let's see. In Fridays. paper, but just a few scores. You got
One
it.
thing I forgot to mention. I forgot to say Mid Prairie. For Mid Prairie, Terry Borden-Nave at 195 was the first place finisher. Sorry, don't want to leave Terry out of there.
We got some important bowling information. We had an anomaly happen earlier this year. Was it the Fairfield boys or girls who lost by 1 pin? It was the boys.
Fairfield boys. Yep.
I believe so.
Fairfield boys and Mount Pleasant boys, 1 pin.
Well, you're spoiling it because I was talking about the last 1 pin win.
Gotcha.
Because Fairfield lost by 1 pin, I believe, in the boys. Well, you know what? Watch the rest of our shows. We talked about it one time. It's happened for the second time.
Yeah.
2004 Fairfield at Mount Pleasant. A 1 pin difference, the second 1 pin difference we've had this year. 2,490 for Fairfield, 2,489 for Mount Pleasant.
Hardly ever see that.
So you hardly ever see it. We've now seen it twice. Ethan Cass led Fairfield 379, Dalton Drish 350. Christian Brock Wagner for Mount Pleasant had a 391, so a big one there. And then in the girls duel, Mount Pleasant 2196 to 1842. Addison McCarty, 327. Bethany Drury, shout out Chad Drury, our pal, former sports writer for the Hawkeye and Courier, and I'm still a writer, with 295. Elizabeth Hootman with 294 to lead Fairfield. So a couple of big scores there, and of course, what I didn't do is pull up the Demon Bowling from last night. Here we go. They traveled to Keokuk, the hardest place to play in Southeast Conference Bowling. And they, do I have a final score on this? No. Hunter, you want to talk about something for 5 seconds, and I'll bring up a final score on this for Old Washington? Unless they don't have it yet.
It's going to be an exciting week in NFL.
That's right. Who you got? Who's, if you know?
Well, I'm a Chiefs fan, so I can't. I got to ride ride with my Chiefs. All right.
Do you think that Patrick Mahomes is hurt? On a scale of 1 to 10, how hurt is Patrick Mahomes?
I think he'll be about a 6 or 7 by the game.
6 or 7?
He'll be at a
6 or 7 hurt, or 6 or 7 healthy?
Hurt. Because he got a high ankle.
Good.
High ankle sprains aren't good, man.
I was thinking earlier, and this might be a bad thought for Kansas City fans, was that it might be good that he has to stay in the pocket, because remember last year he had at the end of the game he had a couple of those scrambles and they got blasted and fumbled the ball. Cost them the game, kind of.
Yeah, we dominated him in the first half last year, and then we just let it go. Don't bring that up.
The girls were third at Keokuk. They also went against West Burlington. They scored 9-10. Washington doesn't have a full girls team, so those scores are a little, what would you say, not mathematically.
Yeah.
Well, it's not like they all went out and rolled gutter balls. They don't have as many girls there. And getting the boys score here. Good TV right here as I'm loading in the boys. They got third as well with 13-37. So third to some good bowling teams, especially Keokuk.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, Keokuk comes to bowl, they bring the whole town, and you walk in and it's like they all ask for work off to go to bowling. They pack the house in bowling. So Keokuk bowling, unstoppable. And that's it. This has been a long episode. Sorry, Nick, probably trying to get home. I promise we won't always go this long, but thank you to our sponsors. Thank you to everyone who watches and listens, and for Hunter Moeller, Andy Kretzinger, and Nick Steffens. An hour into the show about. We are out. We'll see you next week.